Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Major Jaron. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thorod. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Paul, you are a busy man today.
Yeah, it's been.
What's going on?
It's just a lot of stuff.
It's just a lot of stuff happening.
Yep.
A lot of moving parts.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I thought you were going to send me a message saying, like, hey, listen, can we move it to Thursday?
Oh, I thought about it.
I know you did.
Flying. Well, actually, I guess we could have done it on Thursday. Well, yeah, I thought about it.
When you work with someone for so long, you kind of know, like, these little things that they do. Like, if I message Paul at, like, 8:45 in the morning and I don't hear back, and I message him again at, like, 1 o'clock and I don't hear back, I'm like, okay, Paul's, like, swamped in something. Something is going on.
Yeah.
And I just leave you alone, and I'll send an email, and you'll always respond to an email. That's always my last resort. I won't bother you for an email with an email.
Yeah, I don't ever turn off email, but I turn off Skype and I turn off Twitter and.
Yeah, it seems like you. I mean, there's a lot happening right now. There's a lot of stuff brewing in the world of Microsoft and the world of technology, which we're going to talk about.
Sure.
We have so much to talk about, but guys, before I go into it, I want to remind everybody: What the Tech is nominated for a podcast award. We got nominated. I think this is the first time they nominated us, which is pretty cool. If you go to podcastawards.com, which is right. If I could open it up. That is not it. That is not it. Okay, great. I cannot even do that, so thank you. There we go. If you go to podcastawards.com, you could vote for us. Also, Matt Men is also nominated. We have two shows nominated right now, but we also have a bunch of other people. A lot of our friends are nominated. And the easiest way to vote for a lot of our friends, like Darren at Hack5 and Brian Brushwood and all these other guys and Justin Robert Young, is by going to hat.t2t2.eu. That's hat.t2t2.eu. They have a very nice little guideline of how to vote and how to do it, and it makes it very easy for you. Kind of outlines the shows that are, our friends of the show. So definitely go to hat.t2t2.eu or go to podcastawards.com. You can go vote there as well. I kind of want to win this one, boys and girls. So vote for Matt Men in the sports section. Of course, What the Tech in the tech section. Paul.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. Do you want to talk about your build first, or do you want to talk about this really awesome article you posted about Google demonstrating why bringing Android apps to Chrome is so disruptive? I apologize. Disruptive is the word I'm looking for.
It's devastating.
Well, I guess so. It could be devastating.
You will
right?
be devastated.
It could possibly be devastating for a lot of people in the computer business. So I guess we could talk about that.
Okay. This
is something that they announced a couple of weeks ago, and we're starting to get some more information about this. We kind of touched on it last week. This is a big deal, and we were talking about this last week, and I was thinking about, how is this going to disrupt everything, and how is this going to change the way that we're doing computing? And they showed a demo of how it works. I really think the biggest thing here is the fact that you don't need high-powered PCs to run any of these apps. I mean, you essentially,
and then
they're upscale tablet apps.
That's been a benefit of ChromeOS as well, right? It works great on low-end hardware.
This is going to be tough for Microsoft. This is going to be real tough for Microsoft because, you could enter that low market, right? Like you could enter that $199, $299 netbook style market, but if you don't have the apps, which they don't in their app store, people are going to rely on running standard desktop apps, which is not that great of an experience, right? When you're running a bunch of standard desktop apps on something that it's not really tuned to run on this low-powered machine. It'll run, but it's not going to run efficiently.
Right.
I have a 4-year-old machine here, and launching Skype is acting up on this. But I guarantee you, if I were to run a desktop version of Skype, not the desktop version of Skype, the app, the Windows app version, it'll probably be a smoother experience because these things are kind of lighter to run, or they should be at least lighter to run. So, what do you think of this? Do you think there's fear on the Microsoft side that, wow, this is something to consider because they have the biggest app store out there. All these applications, or most of these applications, are going to run no matter what it is. So all Instagram and Snapchat, I mean, essentially everything is going to run on your Chromebook.
Yep.
what do you think Microsoft's response is going to be to this?
Well, first of all, I guess two things. To gauge Microsoft's response to this, I think it makes sense to go back in time to when the first EEPC came out, whenever that was 10 years ago-ish, and it had Linux on it.
Yeah.
And it caused them to completely change their strategy for getting Windows out on low-end computers. They came up with something called Windows XP Starter Edition, even though Windows Vista was already in the market, unprecedented, right? New version of the previous version of Windows. And Linux was never really a serious desktop threat, But of course, Microsoft made sure that was the case. So that's one thing. The other is that we need to give Microsoft a little bit of credit. And I think this gets lost in this discussion a lot. When I write about stuff like this, I think a lot of people who are Microsoft fanboys or Microsoft fans or whatever they want to call themselves, it's this strikes at some weird nerve with people where they get really upset about stuff, that is just kind of happening. But here's something to understand, and I think this is important, and we kind of forget this. Microsoft has been aware of this for years and years, and they have been working to counter this exact threat. It is sort of astonishing in a way that it took Google so long to get Android into a laptop form factor device. When Chromebook first came out, the thing I asked was, why bother with this other thing? You already have Android.
Why not just call it Android?
Yeah, why not just adapt Android to work with a mouse and a keyboard? And I still think that's a little odd. Like, I think Android could work well in that kind of a system. But okay, they've done what they've done. And I'm sorry, to go back to the part about, giving Microsoft a little bit of credit. We can and should complain and argue about whatever it is that Steven Sinofsky did at Microsoft with Windows 8. But the general aim was a good one. They saw that the world was changing quickly, and they moved really quickly to adapt to it. They did it in a bad way. They did it in an unsuccessful and unpopular way.
Forceful is the word I'm looking for.
But again, and I disagree with what they did, but to give them a little bit of credit, they did try to right this giant warship and have it turn on a dime and try to address this new threat in a new way by adding things like pervasive multi-touch experiences and a mobile app platform, mobile device style power management, and on and on and on. We all know what Windows 8 was all about. So they've done a better job in Windows 10, right, of kind of correcting it, just like Windows 7 kind of corrected for Windows Vista. But now it's happening, And a month or so ago, I had written a similar article where, in that case, I was actually talking about like hybrid mobile devices like the iPad Pro and the Google Pixel C, which is actually an Android tablet that is like a 2-in-1 laptop style machine as well. And I wrote that these types of devices, and we need to include Chromebook in this list, and I should have mentioned it more than I did at the time, represent a potential extinction moment for Windows, right? Because these are simpler devices, simpler platforms, but they provide that 90% of the needs of almost anyone or more. In fact, for most people, they probably provide 100% of the needs, and they're kind of relegating Windows to what Windows NT was originally, a workstation class operating system, the type of thing that would be used by people who are using engineering applications, are desktop publishing, graphic arts, programming, where they're writing apps for other platforms, these kind of high-end things, specialty, video editing, and so forth.
Yeah. You have an interesting quote in that article you posted. Mm-hmm. It says, the future of personal computing as we know it is no longer determined by Microsoft. In my opinion, I 100% agree with that. I think it's determined by the app developers.
Yeah.
Because that's where people are going to go. Well, it doesn't matter how great the platform is. If you can't run the application, or if there's a lack of applications, and we've seen that happen with Windows Phone, people are just not going to adapt to the platform. Now, with Microsoft, it's a little different because they have such dominance right now. But when you're competing in this...
dominance, I mean, in the PC market, they are obviously the dominant platform, but the PC market is a very small portion of the overall market for personal computing devices, for personal computing, however you want to say that. And, the Chromebook is already making inroads. Mac has grown very much so in the last year. They're a double-digit market share. Times are changing. That's like,
Yeah.
and it's funny, people want to overemphasize the Steve Jobs stuff in a way. I feel on the one hand, you can't give him enough credit, which is what these people are arguing. But on the other hand, I think we're giving a little too much credit. Steve Jobs often moved too quickly in a direction that wasn't really there yet. And when he talked about things like the post-PC era or, PCs are trucks and mobile devices are cars and that kind of stuff, it wasn't actually true when he said it, right?
PCs are trucks and mobile computers are cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's what's becoming true.
Yeah.
And he was on to something. He was just too early. It was like when he removed the floppy drive from the iMac, and everyone was so proud of him for doing that, for taking that bold step, But what everyone forgets is that the number one selling hardware accessory for that machine was a floppy drive, a USB floppy drive. So, I mean, okay, so that's whatever. But I've come back to this again and again. The iPhone is the meteor that hit the PC Earth and destroyed everything. And it didn't happen at once, and it wasn't obvious to everyone at once. It was obvious to people who were making phones that the iPhone was going to be very disruptive, right? Remember that Andy Rubin and the team that was making Android stopped and reset and walked away from hardware keyboards and, candy bar phones and stuff like that, and went with the iPhone form factor for Android, because that was clearly where that market was going. But it took a little longer to understand that this was going to impact other markets as well, like the PC market. Although, again, give Microsoft a little credit. They finished Windows 7 and looked at the next thing, and they really aggressively, wrongly, but whatever, went in that direction. And they're doing what they can do, and I think that that's laudable. And then, of course, with Windows 10, I think they've done a great job of adapting it.
With the operating system itself, they've done a phenomenal job. Windows 10 is a great machine. It runs efficiently depending on what hardware you're on. It's kind of smart enough to realize what you're using and how it should work. But in this case, I don't think anybody's looking at Chrome OS and saying this is a better operating system. I think people are going to look at this and say, well, I could have all these applications on here. Look at the free apps that exist on here. I don't have to go and find.
But that's what makes it a better operating system?
Is that what makes it a better? I guess it would be whatever works best for you would be the best operating system for you. But as far as a fundamental operating, as far as the code goes and the flexibility and just an overall system, obviously people are going to go with Windows. You're not going to see enterprise switching over to a Chrome OS, or God, I hope not.
Why? Why? Why do you hope that? Like, in other words,
well, right now, I'm saying right now we're not going to see a lot of that.
So
happen.
I actually think that so look, it's fair to say, just to put things in perspective, that Chrome OS, Chromebooks, whatever, have seen great success in education in the United States only. This is the only real market where they've had any real penetration. But that market is big enough that they've already unseated Apple as the number 2 computing platform on PCs, right? So that's interesting. I actually don't know or even think that Chromebook will be number 2 by the end of this year. This might have been a 1/4 anomaly. It might have been whatever. Who knows? We'll see how that goes. It doesn't matter. But I think Apple knows this. That, how much of a push have you seen for Mac type stuff over the past couple of years? Almost none.
From Apple?
How much of a push? Yeah. How much of a push? You're right. Have you seen on iPhone, iOS, iPad, Apple Watch? These things that are devices. Huge pushes, right? They know what's happening. There's a reason we don't see new Macs coming out every as quickly as we used to. Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't have that. There just isn't that kind of momentum behind those devices. So, will Chrome OS ever be as sophisticated and powerful as Windows or Mac OS? Probably not. Does it have to be? No, it doesn't. And that's the point.
So, would you say the future of the PC market is being a semi-appliance where you buy it, you use it, you do it, and then you throw it away and you get a new one?
I bought that Acer Chromebook a couple weeks ago. It's actually a really nice device. There's one or two things I would change on it, aside from like Windows. I personally still very much prefer Windows. I think there's an interesting conversation to be had at this point around what Microsoft can do to counter these kinds of devices. And there are things, but the fundamental thing here to me is simplicity wins all the time, right? Ultimately, it may take a while, but it will win. It will beat complexity. Complexity is self-destructive, right? It's, Microsoft can't do anything right with regards to updates. No one has ever complained about Chromebooks updating, and they update all the time, right? It just works. Now, will it just work all the time as this thing gets more complex? Yeah, I guess we'll get to that point at some point. It will eventually, reach a point of complexity itself, of course. But where they are right now, it's a dangerous point for Windows, and it's a point of great opportunity on the Chrome OS side.
So you have the Acer Chromebook 14, right? You have the Intel version.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a non-Intel version?
I don't because they have an older version that's also called the Chromebook something. So I was just trying to find. So look at this. I mean, it's an Intel. It's a Celeron, fine, but it's a quad core processor, 4 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of onboard storage, for $300.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice machine.
It looks fine. It looks great. Now, how does the big question is going to be? How will they penetrate the mid-range market or the higher end market when it comes to? I can't justify myself, and maybe you could help me kind of understand the thinking of this, or maybe someone in the chat could. Why would I go and spend $700 on a machine running ChromeOS?
Yeah, well, right. So I actually think the big mistake that Google made with the Pixel is that they went for a device that was like $1,000 to $1,500, when in fact what they should have done was what you're describing, a device that is $500 to $700, but was really high quality, and kind of have made that the point. I mean, when Microsoft was coming up in the world, there were all these established players in various markets, right? Not just in personal computing, but in workstations, in mainframes, in servers, and so forth. And Microsoft came in as like the low cost alternative, and they weren't as full featured at first, but that kind of happened over time. So this is what Google's doing now with Chrome OS, and it's interesting because it's happening at a time where everyone has these mobile devices. So you don't have the PC used to be everything, but now the PC is only this reduced set of stuff. Yeah. So it doesn't need to be everything. So it's kind of okay as long as it excels at these kind of productivity things. It's all good. And why would you spend $500 or $700 on a Chromebook? It's kind of hard to say. Although people are spending $1,000 to $2,000 or more on a Mac, and when you ask them why did you buy this thing instead of a Windows PC, I guarantee you will hear baloney like, it's simpler, it's easier to use, it doesn't get viruses, blah, 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 blah. It has many of the same problems that the Chromebook has, in the sense that there are no apps, relatively speaking, compared to Windows.
I can tell you the most honest reason on why most people buy a Mac, because it is a very good looking laptop.
Fine.
The virus thing I get. Okay, fine. There's not
I actually think it's kind of baloney. But
do you really?
Yeah. Yes. In other words, when people say that, I think that's people just justifying an expensive decision.
But you know what? I could understand that, because that's actually I could justify someone saying that over saying it's a simpler. I don't think it's simpler. I think it's as complicated as running Windows, depending on what you're doing. Most people that buy a Mac that I know do not buy it for any of these, apps or it's the operating system. They buy it because it's a Mac and it looks pretty, and the thing is a good-looking machine and is built well.
Yeah, so I guess my point
it's a premium device. That's why they buy it, because it's a premium device.
There's no reason why there couldn't be a $500 Chromebook that was exactly as nice as a MacBook.
No, I 100% agree with you.
No reason at all.
Yeah, 100% agree with you.
And that's what I mean. I think Google blew it when they made that thing so expensive. What they should have done was made a less expensive version of that.
If that Pixel, because there were two of them, right? The Pixel C was the really expensive one, and then now there's the tablet version.
The Pixel C was the tablet. The
Pixel was the original one. Pixel was
there's two generations of the Pixel Chromebook.
Yeah.
So the second one is out now. It's been out for a year now. This is the one where there's a $999 entry-level version you can't buy anymore.
Yes.
And then there's a version for $1299. Now, if that thing was $700,
I think I might have
bought it. I might have bought it.
500, 100%, I would have bought it.
Yeah, 500. No question.
Yeah.
It wasn't. So I bought a $300, like you said, Acer Chromebook, which is a nice machine. There's a couple things, like I said, it's not perfect, doesn't have backlighting, which you do get on some devices. The key throw, as I call it, is a little shallow, but it's not terrible.
Okay, so here's a question for you, as someone that's been using it. $500 version of that same kind of device, but built better, right? I mean, the things that you complain about, it has them. It's let's say similar to a Mac.
Well, but that's so. All right, those devices actually exist, right? So Dell and HP both make business class Chromebooks.
Yeah.
Lenovo does. Those, at least the Dell and the HP, get into that $500 range. In fact, the Dell, I think you could spend upwards of $700 on it. But what the Chromebook market really needs is a range of devices, and that's what it has, And the nice thing about it is it starts really cheap, and so you can get a $200 11-inch machine, it's plastic, great for kids, yada yada yada. I think I had this discussion with you. I have a surprising number of Chromebooks here in my house for some reason. I'm apparently a huge fan of this platform. Apparently. So one of the other ones that I've had kicking around here for a while it's an 11-inch HP Chromebook. It is some ARM-based chipset. It's super low end. It's cute and colorful, whatever. And it was probably a big deal a year and a half ago or something, whenever it came out. So I have this thing, and I have never gotten rid of it for some reason. But when my daughter went to school this past fall, they have Chromebooks at school. She brings this thing home. It's like this huge honking heavy machine she's going to have to jam in her rucksack that's the size of a tent that she carries every day to school. And one of the options they had was that if you have your own Chromebook, you can use that instead. And I said, Kelly, take this thing instead and use this. And she used it all year. She, I shouldn't say she loved it. Her Chromebook is different than everyone else's. It's prettier, which I think she does like, and it's smaller and lighter, which I know she likes.
Yeah. So here's the Chromebook that the people in the chat are saying. This is the HP. This is the $500 one.
That's what I'm talking about.
$500 executive level styling, Paul. Look at that. So I mean, it's a pretty looking laptop.
And this is a laptop that is aimed at businesses. And so you were saying earlier, like, why would any business? Well, the reason is, one of the things that educational institutions are discovering when they adopt Chromebook is that the management of these devices is way simpler than any other device. And that's a huge concern for them because schools don't necessarily want to hire IT pros or admins or whatever to do this kind of stuff. And they certainly, it's like you have to have people like in-house people who have like Active Directory experience and can wipe out computers and all this. It's crazy. These things are really easy to manage. And this gets to the heart of a discussion that I've had with people around enterprises or other businesses with regards to cloud computing, right? Where you get these people who have been managing Exchange in their business for X number of years, and they've upgraded over the years from one version to the other. And now the business is talking about going to the cloud, and they're getting all mad about it. And they're like, I'm going to lose my job, and this is bullshit, and what's going on? And it's like, guys, your business is not in a business to play with technology. Yeah. It's in a business. The business is to make this widget or sell this thing or provide this service. The technology we use is there to support whatever that business is. So we've created giant, complex management infrastructure for businesses of all sizes, Microsoft-based or otherwise. And it's like this untenable mess. And so, Microsoft, by the way, we should say, there's a mobile device management world that exists outside of the ancient Active Directory baloney that everyone uses too. Microsoft is a leader in that market. They expand beyond the capabilities of what other companies are doing because, they can't help themselves. They got to do everything. But even that stuff is more complex than the Chromebook management stuff that's available. So, I guess to answer your question, like anything else in life, there's a lot of inertia. There's a lot of pushback from within because people are used to doing things a certain way and they don't want to change and blah, 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 whatever it is. Should businesses or will businesses want to look at this kind of stuff? Yes, of course, because most businesses aren't in the business of managing technology, even though some gigantic portion of their business is doing just that.
I mean, also, price, pricing for these devices and cost cutting, and I mean, this is all going to play. This is all going to play a major part in this. I just don't know if businesses are going to adapt it as quickly as Google
of course
kind
not.
of perceives, as Google is kind of predicting they will. I heard some of
Well,
I guess the Google jargon they were using, and from what I could understand, the expectation is that this is going to be a major push for enterprise in the coming years. Yeah, it's cute and it's fun. You could have it at schools and you could have it at home and you could run your games on there, but a major focus will be enterprise because that's where the money is.
Yeah, and that's exactly what these companies were saying about Microsoft 20 years ago. It's cute. It's good for schools. I get it. The kids might want it.
Isn't that
it's
amazing?
too simple. Yeah, no, so that's all I'm saying. In other words, I'm literally not saying that I think this is literally better across the board, but I think there is a general understanding we have to have about simplicity and how how important that stuff is, and that sometimes we get caught up in that tradition of just doing things a certain way, and we keep doing it and we keep doing it and we keep doing it, and why are we doing this mess? And we kind of forget why we do it. And again, and also lost in this conversation many times, Microsoft is doing what they can to be a leader in this game and to do what they can do. Microsoft, by the way, is still number one in education, despite what advances Chromebook.
I mean, to
has
play the
made.
other side, play the other side of the argument. When the iPhone came out, the argument was, well, no, they don't want the iPhone. You're still going to use BlackBerry. You're still going to use BlackBerry. And look at every business now.
People can't type on a glass screen.
People can't type on glass screen.
BlackBerry
Nobody wants
has
to type
all
on a
the
glass
security
screen.
stuff. Businesses and governments are never going to put up with the iPhone.
Yeah, and guess what? Everybody has almost every IT person that I know has converted everybody over to an iPhone.
That's all I'm saying. And it's literally
the argument changes. And you know what? For the time being, yes, I am one of these people that says this is not right for enterprise at the current moment. But 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it may be a totally different ballgame. We can't predict that accurately when we talk about technology 5 to 10 years from now, because who saw Apple becoming a leading phone manufacturer 10 years ago?
Sure.
I'm sure there was some goon standing on the corner screaming Apple's going to take over the world, but the reality is that was not the discussion. The discussion was it was Palm, it was BlackBerry, and it was Windows Mobile. Those were the three leaders.
Sure. I mean, there are two sides to that, of course, because there's also the faux inevitability of stuff. We have these conversations where it's like, well, Apple's going to get into cars, and because the iPhone happened, they will dominate this thing, right? And it's like, well, look, it's never a given, But I think but to look at something like Chromebook specifically, because that's really the conversation, I think the issue here for Microsoft is that they saw early on what was going on. They worked to fix it. But the thing that never gained traction for them is this mobile app thing.
Yeah.
And so whether you're looking at Windows phones or Windows 8 and now Windows 10, the thing that has always lagged for them has been the app and ecosystem stuff on the mobile side. So they have this great business of legacy, now, for lack of a better term, PCs with Windows. They have no business for phones. They have basically no business for laptops unless they are sold as transforming 2-in-1 type laptop devices that are really Windows PCs. And getting over that hump is really hard. But when you now look at it from the Chromebook side, they've got this like functional kind of desktop OS that's really a web browser with Linux. They've got Android. They mashed them together, and now they've brought the world's most popular mobile app ecosystem to this productivity device. So they've done the thing Microsoft can't do. I guess you could say that Google has a lackluster laptop.
Google has a lackluster laptop, but a tremendous.
But they have
platform.
an awesome mobile apps thing.
Yeah.
Microsoft has an awesome laptop, but they have a lackluster mobile apps thing. So who wins this argument? Like, who wins? I think the mobile app thing wins because the laptop part is a minority of what people need to do every day. That's the issue. Not me and you. Not the people listening to this. We're the workstation people. We're the trucks.
Yeah.
We're the F-150s of this world.
Yeah.
But it's the little Toyota Corollas buzzing around our tires there that are out there in volume, and that's.
Can I give you a snarky comment, Paul?
Please do.
Can I give you a YouTube post? Paul, you're absolutely wrong about this. The F-150 is a very popular vehicle, and it's the best-selling pickup truck of all time, and it's probably more F-150s on the road than whatever.
Toyota Corollas.
Yeah. That's my snarky response to you right now. I get it though.
Comparisons are never perfect.
You know, it's
So, sorry.
it's a here's a question. I got a question for you.
Paul, if that was
$500.
true, the F-150 would be a diesel model only.
Yeah. Compared to a Toyota Corolla. You know what though? By the way, the F-150 is a great pickup. I just drove my friend's pickup,
Sure.
brand new F-150. To kind of go off on that. Okay, so here's a question for you.
I still prefer PCs personally. In other words, if somebody handed me a couple of $1 million and said you can retire and travel the world, blah blah blah, the machine I'm bringing with me is not a Mac, it's not a Chromebook,
It's a PC.
fucking Windows machine, dude.
Yeah.
For me, that still matters.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem with this conversation is I feel like I raise a very legitimate issue, you know, that this stuff is happening and it needs to be addressed. And I think for the people who are kind of fanboy-ish, you know, they're like, oh yeah, you don't care about Windows anymore. And it's like, no, Windows is actually central to everything I do. It's kind of the only thing I care about. In fact, my favorite thing about Windows 10, my very favorite thing, is that the renewed focus on the PC. I've said this again and again. That Windows 8 went too far in this stupid, touchy direction that doesn't work and makes no sense. And Windows 10 reined in the crazy, and now it's an awesome PC OS again. And that's what I like about it.
I have a question for you, and
Yes.
I'll ask the audience this. You know, like when we discuss the Mac side, I use a Mac. You know, here's my everyday laptop. I use a Mac.
You also drink rosé.
I also drink rosé, but I also use Windows. Every machine in my studio is a Windows-based machine for many reasons. When we talk about the aesthetics of a Mac, I buy it because I've said about the trackpad and I like the keyboard. And again, it's mostly hardware stuff that I'm sure if I really tried, I could find something that's close to on the PC side. But I'm not looking to try to replace this at the time being. If we're talking about aesthetics, right? I'm looking at this HP Chromebook 13, which is kind of targeting enterprise. It looks like a beautiful machine for $500. The whole thing is, you know,
the HP.
HP Chromebook 13.
Yep.
I'm going to pull it up right here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
$500.
Yep.
For $500, if we're talking aesthetics, if we're talking look, will I be able to get something that looks like this on the PC side?
Oh, on the PC side, you know, when I rebooted my machine and lost the show notes, what I also lost was I was at the Microsoft store, and you can do this. In fact, you should do this right now.
Okay.
Go to MicrosoftStore.com.
Do you want me to pull this up on the air or just for myself?
You should, because I just did this today. In fact, I'm considering writing something about this very topic.
Okay.
And then go to devices in the menu, and then PCs and tablets.
Doing this with one hand here. Devices, PCs and tablets.
Yep. And then click on the laptops square that's one level down. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Okay. Now, on the page that comes up on the left, scroll down and you can pick out a price point. Pick out the price point, $250 to $499.99. And this is all of the computers that cost less than $500. This is what comes up. And actually, there aren't that many. It's 8 of them. Okay. There are 2 here that I thought were kind of interesting at this price point.
Okay.
But the nicest one, I think, just looking at pictures and looking at the specs, is the second one down on the right. It's an Acer Inspire V13. So this is a 13-inch Acer laptop. It has a USB-C port, if you can believe that, 6 gigs of memory, 256 gigabyte SSD, Core i5 processor, 1080p screen.
$500.
$500, right? I think it's $500, right? Yeah, $500.
You can get a 197 if you wanted.
You can a couple $100 more. So this is the machine that I think you need to kind of compare to that HP.
Okay, interesting.
Right? Now, it's not a one-to-one because I don't know what the processor in the HP is or whatever, but
I think it's a Core M.
Okay. But ChromeOS requires a lot less in the way of computing resources to do its job. This thing says it gets up to about 8 hours of battery life. The Chromebook probably gets more than that. Yeah. This one has a lot more memory. The Chromebook doesn't need that much memory. This one has a lot of storage. No Chromebook comes with a lot of storage. I have no idea why. But, well, actually, I do know why. Most of the stuff is, everything's saved to the cloud. Yeah. But this is an interesting comparison because I actually think this machine holds its own, again, without having them both sitting here side by side, with that HP.
I would like to see more images because I don't know why
It's out of stock too.
it is out of stock. But do you see how like it's like super white in the background and I can't really like make it out.
What's that?
Like I can't really see like the thickness because it's like on a white background, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, if you scroll down, there's a decent picture of the corner that kind of shows the thickness. It's
Oh, there
not
you go.
like super thin. If you look at that Ethernet port, the thinnest laptops don't have Ethernet ports because you just can't fit it on there.
Yeah.
You know. And
But
there's a
$500, right?
but it's
And it's an
$500.
i5. You're not paying $500 for
It's just-
whatever this.
yeah.
Let me just double check.
It's a nice PC.
I could swear that this
It's
HP
3.5
is-
pounds, right? So it's not horrible weight wise. Anyway, I guess my
Yeah.
point is simply there's stuff out there. The other thing you can get in this price range, of course, are detachables, right? Tablets that transform into laptops and things like that. I'm not necessarily sure that those are such a great deal for most people. There's the other machine that kind of is semi-interesting. There's an Asus VivoBook that's a 14-inch full HD display. It only has a Pentium processor. It's eMMC storage, so it's not great, but it does have 4 gigs of RAM at least. And then from a form factor perspective, this one is actually a little closer to the...
Which one are you looking at? The VivoBook?
Yeah, it's a little closer to the Acer Chromebook from just the way it looks.
Yeah.
And also to that HP Chromebook.
Yeah.
Right? It's thinner. It looks thinner.
$400. It's not...
By the way, it's significantly less heavy. Then it's only 3.2 pounds, even though it's got a bigger screen.
It's also
than
not
the other.
an i-series. It's a Pentium series.
No, no, I know. But we're comparing this to a Chromebook.
Yeah, we're comparing.
Right.
I don't care about the
So-
product. I want to see the look. I want to compare it to...
By the way, this one also has a USB Type-C port, which is great. I have no idea why they do, but they do. So again, I've not used it. I don't know what it's like. It looks fine to me. This looks fine.
Yeah.
I bet I could get real work done on this thing. No problem.
See, I was actually before I had the travesty of my Mac dying, and I still have yet to replace the logic board on this thing. But I had that moment that I needed to replace the computer on that day because I needed to actually edit something, and it was a disaster. But I went to the store and I bought it. Right, I bought this Mac. I was seriously considering at that moment a $500 to $700 PC that I would use. I would keep my Mac because it's getting a little older. I would keep it in the studio or I would keep it upstairs. And I would go back to a PC because I really like Windows 10. And it was it was one of those moments where, shit, I need to replace this. Let me just do it now. And I went and I got it. I didn't want to shop around. I didn't want to go to the Microsoft store and figure out and call Paul. Paul, should I get this? And I'm willing to bet you would have said, I would wait a little.
Yeah. Although, by the way, time goes on and nothing has happened. That is amazing to me. I can't believe how long it's been. And that machine, I mean, the one you have is a tank.
Which one?
It's amazing. The MacBook.
I mean, you
Pro.
saw it the other day. It's heavy. It's not light.
I cannot believe how heavy that.
Well,
thing is.
you also felt it with this giant case that I have on here. This
is
actually
that part of
weighs it. Yeah, it actually makes it a lot bigger than
Okay,
it should
that's
be. But it's still a tank compared to what were you using when I saw you
at the time.
Yeah,
it could have been.
Was it the Chrome? It wasn't the Surface.
No. It was a ThinkPad.
Oh yeah, the ThinkPad.
Yoga maybe or.
By the way, absolutely beautiful laptop, and I was using the thing. The keyboard is way better than the Apple keyboard. I absolutely love the what do they call that little red thingy?
The track point.
The track whatever the track point thing. I absolutely love that because my first laptop was a ThinkPad, and it's something that's very comfortable about that. That is something that I 100% would have considered.
So by the way, I'm looking at Apple's website, and according to them, and I mean, meaning reality, right? The weight of a 13-inch MacBook Pro is 3.5 pounds, which is the exact weight of that Acer we were just discussing.
Okay.
But that machine felt very heavy to me.
Because I had this giant case on the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm also storing. I'm just shoving nickels in there, Paul.
Yes. Well, I have a lot of videos stored on the SSD, and I think that weighs it down.
That weighs it down.
That's what it was.
Why
does this thing weigh so much? Oh, I'm sorry. I have a lot of videos on there.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you something though. Their hard drive that they put on this thing, the flash storage that they put on this thing, My God, it's fast
On the Mac.
on the Mac. Like really, really
Yeah,
fast.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
really fast hard drive. Because
Yeah.
I did the first thing I did was a speed test, and I had an SSD in my other Mac that I put in, and I was getting like 500 by 500. 500 read, 500 write. This is getting like over 1,000 megabytes of data transfer back and forth. Read and write, which is very fast. But it's because it's embedded, and it's not an SSD that you're connecting. Listen, you can buy at the end of the day, whatever makes you happy, right?
Yep.
That's whatever makes you happy. Now,
Sure.
I want to tie this into another article on Thurrott.com, my favorite website in the world.
Mine too.
I'll tell you something, Paul.
Let me tell you something.
Yes, go ahead.
That guy gets it.
That guy effing gets it. That Thurrott. No, you know what? It's so easy for me to go on there and just to see like the headlines for the day. So like I don't have to go through. Because I'm gonna get like This is how I used to get my tech news, right? CNET News. Get it from there. Go to CNET. Now I actually go to Reddit and like see like the top headlines. But I can't really go to The Verge and go to Engadget as much because they filled it up with other content so much that
Right.
I just want to run down of the news. I just want to see what's happening. I want to, it just become difficult. At least with Thurrott.com, I could see right there. Resist the
Thank you for
$299
this
Xbox One. Okay,
unsolicited
Paul, thank you.
advertisement.
By the way,
Yeah,
this segment is brought to you by Thurrott.com.
Thurrott.com. Yep.
So
Yep.
I was on there, and you were talking about the major changes coming to the Xbox app, and we're talking about why certain people are going to buy Windows.
Yep.
This may be a major reason. I see every time we talk about why should Apple's doing this and Chromebooks doing this, and the argument is, well, let's see you run blah 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 game on a Chromebook. It's impossible. Let's see you play it on a Mac. It's going to be very difficult. And I get that argument, and there is a very large group of people purchasing PCs just for the gaming experience. That's a major part in selling and buying a Windows based machine. There are major changes coming that will make that more appealing for a lot of people.
So I spoke actually the day we were comparing laptop weights or whatever it is we were doing while half drunk at Rattle and Hum.
Yeah.
I had I was in New York meeting with Microsoft and Xbox and having some conversations about this stuff and about some stuff coming down the road. And there were two major bits of news, and one is about changes to the Xbox because the anniversary update for Windows 10 is coming to the Xbox One over the course of two releases, one this summer and one this fall. And it's all good stuff, but I mean, Cortana and things like that, and I think we all kind of understand it. And we're going through it, and I'm like, that looks great. They made some changes to the UI that I think makes sense, and it's all good stuff. And I don't mean to downplay it. But when they got to the stuff on the PC side, I was like, stop. I was like, wait a minute. Actually, what you're doing here is in many ways more interesting than the Xbox stuff, Xbox One stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple things going on here. But the biggest one is that Microsoft discovered that there are these competing game services like Steam. Where you build a library of games, you play the games, and Steam has like achievement type things and whatever. And then there's like Origin, and you can just go to a store and buy a game, and there's like different ways to acquire games and play games. But these things are all kind of in a disconnected state. And the one thing that we don't have on the PC side that we have on the console side is this notion of a one online service, Xbox Live, that kind of ties everything together. But the one thing people on Windows 10 had been doing is you can still use the Xbox app to chat with your friends, even if they're not playing Xbox Live games. Because as long as they have an Xbox One or an Xbox Live gamer tag, which is free, you can actually use this app to chat over, voice over IP essentially.
Yeah.
And so you could load up a Steam game and then use this app to chat, right, with your friends.
Oh, that's
and
very
so
interesting.
what occurred to them was, we could integrate the top 1,000 Win32 games, like desktop games, into the service, meaning that when people are playing Half-Life 2 on Steam or Civilization just standalone, or Age of Empires, which is an old game, or whatever it is, they will show up, meaning they will have presence in the app, and you can see what they're doing. You can go click on the game and see a game hub for that Win32 game, even though it's not an Xbox Live game, and see which other of your friends have played this game. Which of your friends are playing that game now? You can chat with them live even when they're playing different games on different services, all through this, all through this one app. What they've basically done, in other words, is make Windows 10 relevant to all PC-based gamers, regardless of where they get their games, right? Super smart. So I thought that was a big deal. Beyond that, there's other stuff, and it's all good stuff. It's, the ability to, I could record a game clip on the Xbox One. I could turn to my computer, bring up the Xbox app. That clip appears there. I edit it in Movie Maker or Photoshop, what do you call it, Premiere Elements or whatever, and then share it back up to the service, right? Perfect, because that's what a PC is for. It does all this awesome, complex stuff, and now we can use it to integrate with the game DVR clips. Like all the clips I've recorded so far are just whatever 30 seconds or 60-second, whatever it is, part of the game that I chose to record. But there's no editing that occurs, and now I can do just clip it appropriately, add titles, whatever.
Yeah,
that's cool. There's one store that this works across the console and Windows 10 on PCs. So all of the Xbox One and Windows 10 games and stuff will all be in the same place. And so you could, from your Windows 10 PC now, browse a store, purchase bundles, episodes of games, season passes, blah, 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 whatever it is, all from like a single location. So single store. That's actually a bigger deal, I think, on the console, but
yeah,
it's kind of a cool one. Integrate your friends from Xbox Live into the People app. Meaning if you have friends on, Hotmail or Outlook.com or Office 365 or LinkedIn or Facebook or Xbox Live, all those people can be in one place.
See, what I'm thinking here? Facebook integration.
Facebook integration.
No, really.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone that's a little younger than me, and I know Facebook is uncool, but Facebook is actually still, everybody has a Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you want to be able to find out who's playing what, a Facebook integration would be the best way to do it, because people don't have anybody's email address anymore.
Oh, I see. Well, so by the way, Facebook is already integrated into the Xbox app.
So that's it. So that's fine. Yeah,
that's in there. Yeah, so you can find your friends on Facebook who have Xbox Live accounts and then have them appear in the app.
Very interesting. Share to Twitter as well. So this is essentially, I'm trying to think what would this be competing with? This is a huge move, because
it's interesting. This isn't really, it's not so much that it's competing with anything. Like, in other words, this isn't like Embrace and Extend exactly. It's a little bit like the hub stuff from Windows Phone. Like, the idea is you have a PC and you play games. And some people play games on Steam, and some people just buy the games outright. Some people, increasingly you can finally use Xbox Live. There are games that you get from different places. But they understand which are the top 1,000 of these games, the ones that are actually used all the time. So they're not extending the stuff, right? Like, in other words, they're not adding achievements to a PC game or anything like that. They're just allowing those things to show up and for you to have presence, that when you're doing this thing, your friends on Xbox Live will see that you're doing this thing.
Yeah.
And then you can interact with them, right? It's hard to think back, but remember the coolest thing about Xbox Live when it first came out back in 2001 or 2, whatever year that was they took this system that had kind of it came up out of what they had in the original Halo, or in Halo 2, I guess the original Halo, where some of the early matchmaking capabilities, where the system would try to intelligently match people based on how good they played the game. But they brought it to a wider network where it didn't matter what game you were in. So if you think about just like an early Xbox thing, like some person is over here playing, Halo, and some person is over here playing this other game, you can still talk to each other. I mean, that's actually a really powerful capability. We're so used to it now, we don't really think about it. But the ability to see what your friends are doing, invite them to a party, chat with them live, and get into a game together and play this.
This is a major selling point for a lot of people.
Now we can do it on the PC, and that's the point. It's to bring the power of Xbox Live to the PC in a way that makes sense on the PC, because not everyone on the PC is using Xbox Live to play games, right? Yeah. In other words, like on Xbox, everyone is using Xbox Live to play games. That's the point. But on the PC, they're not, and so now they're opening it up so it makes sense for everybody. It's super smart.
It is very smart. I'm curious to see how much people are going to use this for gaming.
Well, I guess they're kind of already using it in a sense,
Yeah.
just to chat.
Just to chat amongst each other. I mean, that's. I'm sure. You know what I'm thinking? Like, you never did a lot of the multiplayer stuff, right? Like, you never. You never like hung out with your friends and played it over. Like we.
Oh
we
no,
used
I
to-
did nothing but this.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
No. Like, how would you do multiplayer gaming before this existed? Things like this existed.
Oh,
before
listen.
Skype?
No, I've been doing that for 20 years. So I mean, dating back to the original Doom, which required an IPX SPX network, we used to play at the computer lab I managed on weekends and on nights, and we would get together physically in a room. I think it was like 4 people max per game, and we would play each other and yell, hurl insults at each other.
Yeah.
And then as things evolved, dial up first and then broadband internet. Games like Duke Nukem, where you could play, I think it was like the 10 network was the name of it, or there were things like Dwango, I think I could get that one wrong, for Doom, where you could play it over the internet. And I would sit there with a headset, or worse, with like the phone crooked in my ear, because the way you would communicate with your friends would be something outside of the game, because we just didn't have the technology. So I'd be playing on a keyboard, no mouse, Duke Nukem 3D, or Quake, Heretic, and those games, and eventually. I'm trying to think how, the way that like this stuff would work on a PC, like Quake World Timeframe or newer, like Unreal Tournament or those games, is you would just kind of hop online. You would get into the game. It would find a game. You would pick the type of game you wanted to play. We had friends in the Phoenix area at the time who had their own servers for different things. Like we did Quake Rune. We had played like Rune Quake, I think was the name of it. Kind of a Quake mod.
It's amazing. Yours is so much more sophisticated than what we used to do.
Well, I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, so it's gotten simpler. But
we used to, we all had speakerphones, and we would three-way. So like we had like 2 people that had three-way calling. So we would call each other and then three-way someone else, and then they would call someone and then three-way someone else. So we would have like 6 people on speaker,
at each other on the phone,
and we were like yelling at each other on the phone, and we were playing. We would play StarCraft that way.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's how. I mean, it's amazing, right? How everything now is integrated, and
but that's
you
can see why it would happen, right? I mean, and I think one of the beautiful things about a console, and the reason I eventually made that transition, because Xbox Live debuted during the Xbox timeframe, the first one, and then of course by the time the 360 came out a few years later, it was just fully integrated. It was the point.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at a comment in the chat. GFQ viewer 31107 says, "I missed my ex-wife's I missed my ex-wife's school open house in '93 because of multiplayer Doom beta."
Yeah, why not? I remember this was Quake, and I think it was Quake, not Quake World, like Quake. I was playing probably like one-on-one actually with a friend, and like we would just chase each other around these levels with rocket launchers, and we're on the phone, and it's like one of those things, like literally the phone's in the crook of your shoulder, and I'm like chasing him, and as I fire, he's turning a corner, so the thing will hit the wall because he's turned, and I'm just firing at him as I go, and I'm like, stay on target. He's like, shut up, and it's just like,
you had one jerk that had terrible latency and mess everything up for everybody.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing how far we've come, but it's amazing. The amazing part is that when it comes to gaming, Microsoft is kind of smart to this stuff, and this is if you're a gamer, this is a nice little perk to have. When is this version going to be available, Paul?
Which one? The Xbox app version?
Yeah.
So it's kind of tied to the anniversary update for Windows 10, but I think as soon as this week, you should be able to get an update. The testing works different across the platform. So on the Windows 10 side, what you want to get is the Xbox beta app. There's a beta version that gets new features first. And I think that could be as soon as this week. It should come out sometime soon. And then eventually, of course, those features get rolled into the main Xbox app, the one that's bundled with Windows 10.
Yeah.
But you can have both on your computer. You can just download it from the store.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You want to talk about your gaming machine, your custom PC that you're building?
Why don't we save that one for the next bit?
Okay, yeah, we'll do that then. We'll do that because we're running out of time anyway. You know what I'm going to do? Mm-hmm. I'm going to make I'm going to make What to Talk available for everybody because I think this is an interesting conversation to have on What to Talk.
Sure.
So I'll open it up and I'll post it on YouTube, and maybe I'll inject it into the RSS so people can check it out. Guys, if you want to get access to the bonus content that we do after the show, you can go to patreon.com/whatthetech, sign up there, access the shows. We have a bunch of bonus content that we do after the show. I think this one's going to be a good one because a lot of people had a lot to say about this because you made the post. A lot of people had something to say, which we knew. I mean, we went through this on Monday, and when you placed the order, I kind of knew that people would be very very passionate about this discussion.
Yes.
And listen,
yes, passionate.
There's so many. Very passionate is the word. Guys, subscribe to the podcast. We're everywhere podcasts are available. I really encourage you to leave a review if you're using iTunes. I know a lot of you guys don't use iTunes, but if you're using iTunes, please subscribe on iTunes. Video podcast, audio podcast, leave a rating, leave a review, do all that because it helps.
If you're
us
not
out.
using iTunes, don't start now.
If you're not using iTunes, don't you dare start using iTunes. Just subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thurrott.com, all things Paul Thurrott. Paul, anything coming up?
Nope. I'm taking a couple of days off at the end of the week.
Nothing.
No. Next week is E3, which I'm not going to.
And it's the Apple event on Monday. Monday's the
Apple.
event.
Oh, sorry, the Apple event. Yeah.
The following week is, I think, E3.
Oh, you're right. Am I right? Am I off on the E3
You're off
thing?
by a week, yeah. You've been off by a week for about 2 weeks.
No, I think it's the 13th. Isn't it the 13th?
Is it?
I think so.
E3? No. Apple event is the 13th.
They
E3,
can't
I
both
believe,
be
is the 17th? No, 14th.
No,
You're right,
Microsoft's Xbox E3
Jeez.
briefing is Monday, June 13th.
Yeah, Monday.
I'm going to have a bit. That's going to be.
Oh my
I'm
God.
flying. Wait a minute. I think I'm flying that day. How could I have screwed that up so badly?
E3 and oh my God, I'm not going to leave. And you know what? It's the Italy versus Belgium Euro Cup game that I'm supposed to go watch.
Oh, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'll have internet connectivity.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Monday is going to be a big day.
She's like, yes, it is.
Yeah. I totally forgot that E3 is starting on Monday, and that's terrible. That really ruins everything for me. My entire plan of just doing the stupid WWDC conference coverage and then just heading to go watch the soccer game is totally out the window now. So now I'm going to have to do E3 stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to do it from the plane. I will be online. I'll be online.
All right. You can follow Paul on Twitter at Thurrott, Thurrott.com, all things Paul Thurrott. You can follow me on Twitter at AndrewZarian. Of course, subscribe to the podcast, like I said. If you're watching live, stay tuned. We're going to do some bonus stuff. We're going to go down. We're going to list off Paul's new PC, what he's putting in there, why he's doing what he's doing. And I'm going to read some of the comments also, which is always interesting. Guys, that's it for this week. See y'all later.